Hi, it's Mark Coopersmith with this episode of The Resilient Entrepreneur, Building Success and Surviving Setbacks, with a lot of our content based on the book that John Danner and I wrote, The Other F Word, How Smart Leaders, Teams, and Entrepreneurs Put Failure to Work. And we're working our way through a lot of the chapters in that book, and I'm really excited with this episode because, allow me to share screen, and I'll show you why in just one second. Here we go. We are on chapter 9. And if you take a look at the table of contents of our book, you'll notice that in the first section, which is really chapters 1 through 5, we framed failure, kind of the topics of failure, fear of failure, some of the statistics around it. And then in chapter 6, 7, and 8, we looked at how failure and its positive cousin, resilience, insinuates itself in companies of all sizes, startups, keep-ups or mid-sized businesses, and grown-ups, large enterprises. And the question that many people ask as we go through that is, well, this is all very helpful and we understand the framing, but what do I do about it? And when John and I started researching this topic, there were a couple of things that we realized. Number one, nobody who has written on this topic had actually really defined failure and resilience in the way that we laid it out. And of course, we did that in one of our previous episodes, especially if you have been following along kind of by the chapter. Of course, you're free to work your way through our episodes however you want, but we've organized them, numbered them according to chapters in the book. But the real aha comes in at this point, which is how do we turn failure from a regret into a resource? How do we become more resilient as entrepreneurs, as owners of small and medium-sized businesses, as participants, leaders, practitioners in global enterprises? How do we get better at this? And this is where we are going to share with you the 7-stage failure value cycle that John and I developed based on hundreds of interviews, years of work that we had done researching, also teaching this class in our classrooms at UC Berkeley and John at Princeton as well. So allow me to share, there we are, the failure value cycle. And in this episode, I'm just going to do a quick walkthrough of it. And in following episodes, we're going to deconstruct them in greater detail, one at a time. So we have 7 stages in what we call the failure value cycle. And the key thing is, if you practice across all of these, it will enable you to be a more resilient leader. It will enable you not just to barely survive, but to thrive when, well, most of the time. Of course, sometimes we have failures, we can't always survive. But if you follow our cycle, you will be much more effective at surviving and thriving in the face of setbacks. And especially if you're building your own business, there are lots of surprises and setbacks. And here's how our failure value cycle goes. 7 stages. First of all, respect the fact, by the way, you may notice that all of our stages begin with the letter R. We wanted to find a convenient way to remember them. We also wanted to, and yes, there's a wink coming up here, we wanted to respect the pirates among all of us, right? The people that buck convention. Because if you'll notice, it's not just the letter R, it's the letter R. And I'm going to digress. I have a little joke. What is a pirate's favorite letter? You might think that it's the letter R, but you're wrong. It is the C. Sorry, I'm not going to explain it. Let's keep going. All right, the failure value cycle. Here it is. First, respect the fact that failure happens a lot. And we spent time earlier talking about the facts of failure, the fact that failure is really present all around us. It's like gravity. Stage number 2, with that respect built in, rehearse for those failures that will likely happen. What's really interesting is that there are groups that rehearse for failures all the time. Think about who rehearses. Well, certainly sports teams practice all the time, right? Because things on the sports field come at you from all directions. Operating room surgery teams all the time. Military all the time. Firemen, police, other armed forces, all of those that require precision, that also have to deal with highly uncertain life and death situations all the time. But in business, do we rehearse for failure? No, we really don't. So number 2, rehearse for failure. Number 3, when failure happens, have in place the early warning signs so you can recognize it as soon as possible. You want to recognize failures early. You want to recognize those setbacks early before they become so ingrained that they become potentially terminal, that they might kill the business. That's 3. Number 4 is when a failure happens, react effectively in the moment. Oftentimes that means apologize quickly to your customers, to your partners, and then take immediate steps to stem the problem, to stop the problem, stem the bleeding. But don't try and fix everything all at once. And this is really important because we move to stage number 5, which is reflect. Before you try and fix it, you want to reflect what went wrong and why. Because it may be that by quickly moving in to fix what appears to be the symptoms, you're not getting at the root cause. So we'll show you how to reflect upon them, and we'll give you some examples of companies that actually got underneath what they thought was the problem and found the real cause. And when you do that effectively, it allows you to move from a defensive position, oh my gosh, we've had a failure, we have to save our customers, whatever, into an offensive position. And that's step number 6, which is the rebound. And in the rebound step, you put together all of those things that you learned. Aha, here's what went wrong. Here's what we missed. Here's what our customers, our employees, our partners are really looking for. You move into offense and you put that rebound strategy into play with all of those new insights. And that's really important. These 2 steps, stages 5 and 6, reflect and rebound, are really the essence of this resilience component. And we'll spend more time on that. And then finally, number 7, remember. Remember those failures so they don't happen again. And there have been a lot of studies that have been shown. Companies that have processes in place, capabilities to remember these episodes better, have fewer recurrences. Another thing, kind of another proof point on this, is that companies that have lower turnover also have fewer return events where failure recurs. Why? Because that institutional memory is in the employees that are still there. So either have long-term employees and back those up by systems and ways of remembering those failures so that we learn from them for the future. That's it for now. That's our failure value cycle. And we'll be going through each of these steps in the episodes that follow. See you soon.